Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
It took 5 weeks, and it happened when Alabama was off, but the Tide is back on top, at least in the latest coaches poll. Alabama vaulted to #1 after Florida State had another lackluster win over North Carolina State. It's the 7th consecutive year that Alabama has been #1 at some point in the season, tying the University of Miami's record. That is pretty good, consistent football at a high level. And good evening, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris, and as always, Pepsi products. Ice cold Pepsi next again this evening. Man, that's good. Try it the next time you're at your local grocer. Pick up some Pepsi Next or any fine Pepsi product from Buffalo Rock. Rodney, after a bye week, we're finally in game week mode, and this one's a big one. Alabama with a road test for the first time this Saturday, a true road game at Ole Miss. The Rebels ranked 11th in both the polls. Alabama ranked #1 in the coaches poll, #3 in the Associated Press. And I know it's easy to say, well, Ole Miss has had high expectations before, and Alabama seems to always silence them, but this is the first time in 44 years that the Rebels have made it to 4-0. So their expectations this year, well, they deserve to have some high expectations. They're playing very well.
They really do. I mean, first of all, they have an experienced quarterback, Gary. Bo Wallace has been around a while, and he's, learned how to win. And you look at them defensively, I think, this might be the best Ole Miss defense that I can remember. And there's been some really good ones back in the early 90s with Joe Lee Dunn, as you remember. This defense is very fast, very quick. They're a talented team.
Well, fans are debating how good is this Ole Miss team. Are they for real? Well, Coach Saban at his weekly press conference on Monday, he left little doubt in his mind that this is a really fine football team.
Best defensive team we played, all year. This is the best team we played all year. But their defense is especially quick, run well, good pressure team, up front. They got a ball-hawking secondary who has, picked off a lot of passes. Some of it's created by the pressure in the scheme, and some of it the quality of players that they have. But, Bo Wallace's third-year starter has done a really, really good job of executing their offense, knows where he's going to go with the ball, what he's going to do with it. They do a really good job with their no-huddle pace of play.
Here are some notes on the game. Alabama has won 10 straight in the series and have really dominated. Games for the most part have been one-sided. They've dominated the all-time series. Only 8 wins for Ole Miss on the field. They're credited with 9 because of a forfeiture. Alabama also had to vacate a couple of victories. But Alabama is making its 30th appearance on game day. But it's the first time ever that the show has been in Oxford. So Alabama's used to this kind of hype. And look at Saban versus the Rebels. 7-0 at Alabama, 4-1 versus LSU. Only 1 loss in 12 games against the Ole Miss Rebels. So that bodes well for Alabama. But again, Rodney, this matchup is a little bit different in the sense that Ole Miss in 2009, they were highly ranked, had 1 loss when Alabama went over there under Houston Nutt and won 22-3. But this Ole Miss defense is by far the best that we've seen. You'd have to go back maybe to John Vault's days to see a better Ole Miss defense than this one.
Yeah, I thought they were really good in '93. You remember when Alabama went over there and struggled? And
yeah, they were really good.
Eked out a 19-14 win, thanks to David Palmer, as many of you probably remember. But, this Ole Miss defense, very quick. You look at them up front defensively. One of the things different about this team is, when you're talking about on the defensive side, Gary, is they have a little more depth up front on the defensive line. So they have they can kind of substitute guys. They're really fast and speedy at linebacker. And in the secondary, like Coach Saban said, they're ball-hawking defense. I think they have 8 picks on the year. So certainly they're one of the top teams in the country in that regard.
I'm glad you mentioned that '93 defense, because you're right. Hand and Bowens, I think, were those 2 big defensive tackle. I don't know if Alabama moved them all day.
No, they didn't.
You're right. Until they just put David Palmer back there and said go, they didn't move the ball. But Alabama did win that game later. That win was taken away during the '93 season because of the Antonio Langum situation. But Ole Miss has had some good teams, but this could be one of the best. Offensively, when you look at Ole Miss, you look at Bo Wallace. He's capable of making big plays. He's also capable of making big plays for the other team.
He reminds me a little bit of Jevin Sneed in that regard. You know, the quarterback, you talked about the 2009 game. I mean, Bo Wallace has a propensity to kind of put the ball up. I think he threw 3 picks against Memphis this past week. But, you know, certainly, Gary, this is a game that he's been focused on. You remember last year he made the comment that we're going to score some points on Alabama. They got shut out 25-zip, as we remember. But, you know, again, he's a guy that, you know, when he's on, he's pretty good. And he's had a couple of games over 300 yards this year and 3+ touchdowns. So, you know, a little bit streaky, but he's been around a while and he's got some experience.
Has the big arm. Now, if Alabama needed any added incentive, and the Tide usually doesn't, they got a little bit maybe this weekend after Ole Miss beat Memphis. Senior safety Cody Pruitt of the Rebels was asked about playing the Tide, and he said that Alabama certainly not as good as it's been in the past.
We understand that we haven't played a team that's going to be as good as Bama, but you know, we don't really think Bama is as good as they have been, and we're better than we have been, and we're looking forward to getting to the game plan and getting this week started and really nailing down all the tweaks and stuff that we're going to have to put into to Bama.
By the way, Rodney, I have not been able to confirm that he and Trey DePriest, the Alabama linebacker, are related, even though they look like brothers.
Right.
All right, that comment picked up a lot of steam on Twitter. Alabama, though, in its typical fashion, they kind of just blow that stuff off. They don't, you know, that's not Alabama style, and it's not their style to pay attention to any of that stuff either, really. Well,
and again, I think, you know, that's kind of been the feeling over there with Ole Miss probably since the end of last season. I know that there was talk coming out of there that Alabama could be had this year. They thought that their opportunity to beat Alabama would exist, you know, in this particular game. Maybe their chances were greater than it had been in a while. So I think what he's saying is just kind of trickled down from what that coaching staff over there has kind of, you know, been talking since the end of last season.
Of course, Wallace talked a lot of smack last year, saying there's no doubt Ole Miss would score a lot of points, and they didn't score any. As you might guess, Alabama players were asked about Pruitt's comments on Monday, and here's what they had to say about him.
I mean, we really don't buy into it. We let the other team just talk all they want to, but we just go out there and practice and do what we have to do. And when the game comes, we just going to go out there and play.
I mean, that's fine. I don't really pay attention to none of that. I mean, they're going to say what they want to say, but, I mean, at the end of the day, we still got to play on Saturday, so we'll find out.
Definitely was aware of the comment that was said. I was tagged into it on Twitter. I didn't hear about it until Twitter. And, I mean, he's a great player. He's a great team. They have their expectations. We have ours. I mean, and we're going to look to go into that game to play our best game, definitely.
Well, it's never a good idea to give the opponent bulletin board material, and Ole Miss may have done exactly that for the second year in a row. Well, more TITV is on the way, including a check on a couple of fall sports teams who are red hot. And next, we'll welcome in Chase Goodbread from NFL.com. He'll help us break down the Alabama players that are the most highly thought of as far as next spring's NFL draft. It starts with Amari Cooper, but there are some others. We'll break it down for you next here on TITV. And remember, call us with your questions and comments. We'll be taking those phone calls later at 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Email us at TITV@WVUATV.com. And Twitter, you can reach out to us, hashtag Tider Insider TV. We're back with more of the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV. Stay with us. Great recruiting leads to great players at the college level and the NFL level. A lot of guys in the NFL since Nick Saban's arrived, and they continue to make an impact. Clinton Dix had a good day for the Packers on defense, making a stop at the goal line. Eddie Lacy had a touchdown in that game, as well as the Packers beat the Bears. Of course, many, many more throughout the National Football League. And speaking of the NFL, joining us now, our good friend Chase Goodbread from NFL.com, formerly the Tuscaloosa News. And Chase, we're going to talk a number of subjects with you. And of course, Crimson Cover, too, now right here on WVUA. Want to promote that. That's right. But let's talk about some Crimson Tide draft prospects. As I just alluded to, and Rodney's followed it as well, they've been pumping them out around here, first-round draft picks since Nick Saban arrived. And you remember the first year that he was here in 2008, following the 2007 season, there were no players drafted from Alabama.
Not a soul.
Yeah, so that's how it's changed. But, you know, there's seniors and then there's draft-eligible prospects, and we have to, you know, mention that guys like Cooper and Landon Collins are eligible for the draft, but they have to make that decision. But let's start with those two guys. If they make the decision to come out, they would seem to be surefire first-rounders.
I don't think there's any doubt those two are the ones that people are looking at as the top two prospects on the roster. Like you said, they've both got early entry decisions to make, but Cooper's been the best wide receiver in college football a month into the season. And, you know, you hear people talk about him kind of along the same lines as they were talking about Sammy Watkins from Clemson last year. He's thought of that highly, and as we know, Sammy Watkins was the 4th pick of the draft to the Buffalo Bills. So, yeah, lots of excitement among scouts about Cooper. They like his hands. They like his ability to catch the ball in traffic, his ability to, you know, kind of catch the ball that's, you know, the lob, the fade, the back shoulder stuff that's popular. He can do all of that. And, of course, on the defensive side, Landon Collins is the best prospect Alabama has on that side. I've heard him likened as kind of a cross between Mark Barron and Ha-Ha Clinton-Dix, and I think that's pretty accurate. He's a phenomenal talent.
Chase, you know, as we look forward, a couple of other guys, well, especially one guy that I'm really interested in would be T.J. Yeldon if he were to decide to go. You know, here's a guy that, you know, running backs aren't necessarily a commodity. You know, he certainly put up some great stats. What's kind of the early word on him?
Definitely an NFL prospect as well. I don't think there's any doubt about it. As you said, though, running backs have a tendency to come out early, maybe whether they're going to be first-round picks or not, or even second-round picks, because these days they're just not being drafted as high. It's been a couple of years, the last couple of years, there hadn't even been a running back to go in the first round. So, and Nick Saban's kind of twisted his advice for running backs a little bit to fit that.
Right.
You know, I mean, remember when Eddie Lacy came out last year, you know, Saban said, look, running backs, it's a little bit different story because of the mileage on their legs. It's a short NFL career. And so, you know, Nick Saban gave Eddie Lacy his blessing, even though he was ultimately a second-round pick. And I think people knew back last January that Eddie would probably be a second-round type guy.
Yeah, Trent Richardson, 3rd overall. He might have ruined it for everybody.
He might
you know, seriously, you don't know when you'll see another running back taken in the first round.
You know what?
Regardless of how talented
my
they
money's
are.
on Todd Gurley if he comes out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that guy. If that guy doesn't go in the first round, I don't know who will. But he's another one who's an early entry decision.
Real quickly, I do want to ask you about the Ole Miss game, but a couple of other guys, maybe you consider them, I don't know, friends guys, but a guy like Trey DePriest, a senior linebacker, where does he factor in right now as far as the draft's concerned?
Definitely, I think he's the type of guy that a lot of scouts are looking at as maybe a second-day draft pick, which of course is rounds 2 or 3, or maybe a third day in the later rounds. I don't think he's a first-round pick, but you know, he's an experienced guy. One thing he would have going for him is that he's a standout on special teams. And that definitely helps a lot of these guys, or at least he has been in the past for Alabama. He's a proven special teams guy. Could help him as well.
What about DeAndre White and Christian Jones? What's the status of those two?
You know, personally, I think DeAndre White looks to me like more of an NFL prospect than Christian Jones, just because I think he's a little bit more explosive. I think he's got a little bit more quickness and straight line speed. The issue, of course, with White now is he's got more of an injury history than Christian Jones, and that factors into the scouting evaluation as well. All that stuff gets factored in when it comes time for the NFL Combine in February.
And finally, a couple offensive linemen, seniors, Shepard and Quanjo. Any interest there from the NFL?
I think Shepard probably be a little bit more likely than Quanjo to get drafted. Shepard's been a guy who's developed over years. I probably wouldn't have thought that about Shepard maybe a year or two ago, but he's gotten better and better. And I think he's a solid right tackle for the Crimson Tide, and will definitely get a chance in the NFL for sure.
And real quickly, Chase, the clock is winding down. You're a TV guy now. You appreciate that. But just your thoughts on Alabama and Ole Miss. As Rodney and I were talking about, this does seem to be the best Ole Miss team we've seen in a long time.
You know, what jumps out to me, I think Ole Miss has the best secondary in the SEC.
Wow.
When you talk about Tony Connor and Cody Pruitt at safety, they've got Trey Elston at the Rover who can play. They're you know, Sinquest Golson. You know, remember Sinquest Golson was a goat as a freshman for one of Trent Richardson's big runs.
That's
you know,
right.
the dead leg run. Well, he's grown into a senior now, and he can play. He's come a long way. So yeah, best secondary in the SEC. It's going to be a challenge for Blake Sims on the road. Best defense I can remember Ole Miss having in my lifetime.
All right, buddy. Appreciate the time. Tell everybody again where they can find you.
crimsoncover.com and NFL.com/CFB247.
All right, there you go. Chase Goodbread joined us talking Alabama and the draft. It's something Crimson Tide players have become very familiar with. Well, Tider Insider TV continues after this timeout. We'll check in on Todd Bramble's soccer team. And next, we're welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the information's on the screen on how you can get in touch with us. We want to hear from you when we come back with more TI TV. Stay with us, everybody. It was a Tennessee two-step for the Crimson Tide soccer team over the weekend. That's a good thing. Alabama winning in Knoxville and defeated the Vols on Friday night. Then on Sunday, Todd Bramble's crew made it over to Music City, Nashville, Tennessee, and knocked off the Commodores. Alabama now 2-1 in the SEC, 7-3-1 overall. How about that? It's time now to head to the Med Center hotline. Rodney, they're lined up, so let's get right to it, starting off with Josh in Moundville. Hey, Josh, welcome into the program.
I was wondering, will Auburn be the toughest game for Alabama this year?
Well, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, you know, and Rodney and I kind of, like coaches, we take them one game at a time. There's a lot of tough opponents before Alabama gets to Auburn, and both those teams' season could go either way. But clearly, they're a really good football team. They're defending SEC champions. You know, right now, you know, I don't know if I could say that's the toughest game or not. I mean, right now, the Ole Miss is the toughest game in my opinion.
It's really too early to say.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the next stretch of the next month and Alabama's schedule. I mean, they have, you know, we talked about Ole Miss this weekend. Then they have Arkansas. Then Texas A&M comes to town, and then Alabama plays what? Tennessee on the road.
Yeah.
Tennessee on the road after that, and then they play Mississippi State and LSU back to back. I mean,
it's a gauntlet.
It's unbelievable.
Check back with us on that one, Josh. But Auburn is a very good football team. We all know that, top 5 team. Let's go to Saginaw and talk to William. Hey, William, what's going on?
Hey, guys, Gary and Rodney. Hey, I wanted to ask y'all a question, y'all's opinion. Coach Bryant, when he got later in his career, talked about how he was coaching coaches more than players. Y'all see anything that in Coach Saban, particularly watching him on the sidelines with Coach Kiffin? Y'all see anything developing like that with Coach Saban?
Well, I'll let Rod chime in a moment. I still think Saban coaches a players really hard, but I do think he coaches coaches, and he gets coaches that he thinks fits his style and his scheme and his attitude. And so, yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think he's probably at this point in his career a really hands-on coach in every aspect of what he does.
He very much is. There's no question about that. I don't think he's a CEO-type coach in terms of, you know, just kind of telling his coaches what he wants done and allowing them to kind of carry it out. Not that he does not give them leeway, because he certainly does to some extent. But I think the reason you kind of get that impression is, you know, Coach Saban really hasn't had his offensive coordinator on the field with him to this point now. So you see he and Lane Kiffin certainly kind of, you know, getting their heads together and trying to make some determinations on the sideline. But I don't think that should be confused is that he's not really hands-on. In fact, I think it probably shows that he is extremely hands-on.
All right, let's go to Northport and talk to David. David, we got to go fast. What's up?
I know it'd be hard to say that that anything was held back against Florida, but is there anything you guys think we have not seen going into Ole Miss?
Well, I'm sure, David, when you look at it offensively, there's probably some things that they can do that they haven't done. I wouldn't say that they've certainly pulled out everything in the bag, so to speak. And, you know, what that might be, we really don't know. We'll kind of just have to wait and see. But, you know, I think, Gary, as we move along, I think O.J. Howard's going to continue to become more of a factor here as we move forward.
All right, much more to come, including a Tide team on top of the SEC standings and knocking on the door of the top 25. That would be a first for this squad. And coming up, more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the information posted there on your screen. Still love to hear from you. We'll be talking to you and much, much more still to come tonight on TI TV, telecasting live from the University of Alabama. Stay with us. The Alabama volleyball team is really, really on top right now. And I tell you what, Phillip Sims is taking the place of Alabama volleyball. That's where he's at now. He's playing for the Alabama volleyball team.
Hey, let's see. He's played for 3 college football teams, so now he's trying volleyball, huh?
You know, they're playing really, really well. They're on top of the SEC standings, and for the first time ever, Rodney, they received votes in the coaches poll. How about that? Ed Allen getting it done as the Alabama volleyball coach. All right, let's go right back to the phones and talk to Plato in Panorama. Hey, what's going on?
Hey, good evening. I wanted to check on the status of Grant Hill. They said he had been in practice in the last 2 days. Do either of you know
Yeah. Plato, listen, there really hasn't been any kind of a statement or anything from Coach Saban on that. You know, sometimes guys miss practice for a variety of reasons or whatever. Now, just because he hasn't been seen during the media viewing period, also, let me tell you, we're only out there about 10 minutes, so it's possible that he came after that. But even if not, I'm sure Coach Saban will address that probably tomorrow night. All right, let's go to Gadsden and work in Bill here real quickly. Bill, what's up?
Roll Tide, guys.
Yes, sir.
Been hearing a rumor today that Coach Smart is interviewing for a job, and wondering if it could possibly be Florida.
Well, first of all, Florida has a coach. I don't think that they're going to make a change right now in the middle of the year, to be honest with you. And if they did, I mean, we would hear it first. They certainly wouldn't be interviewing anyone, and I doubt that Coach Smart would interview for a position in the middle of the season. All right. Thanks for our phone calls tonight. We appreciate it. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us. It was a Heisman moment for sure. Trent Richardson and the Tide smoking the Rebels 52-7. The last time Alabama was Oxford, 2011. They traveled to Tuscaloosa 2 years in a row because of the change in schedule when they added A&M and Missouri. Richardson didn't win the trophy, but boy, he sure had a heck of a night against the Rebels. All right, Rodney, it's time to make our picks for this weekend. And as I lead you into your pick, I want to mention something we haven't mentioned tonight. A lot of people concerned about Blake Sims evidently not throwing during the media viewing period, but that's just during the media viewing period. We're expecting him to play. Yeah, I think he probably threw, Gary, but not during the media viewing period. And that's only 10 minutes. So, with look at that, certainly I think he's key to any prediction, but I think Blake Sims is going to be fine. I think he's going to play. And I think as long as Alabama doesn't go over there and turn the ball over, Gary, 28-17. I know this Ole Miss defense is really, really good, and I have to pick my games over the weekend for the Northport Gazette, and I don't know that Alabama's going to get to 31, but I think they're going to win the game by about 10 points. I think Ole Miss is really good, but I think Alabama's better. And as we've seen with Nick Saban, most of the time, the best team wins, and if you beat him, you're going to have to play phenomenally and hope that he helps you out a little bit. All right, our thanks to the Locker Room on the University Strip for outfitting us in original elephant wear as always. A reminder, you can catch a replay of the show tonight at 10:30 or find it on our website. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching Tider Insider TV. Have a good night, everybody.